Hi, Sensei France here. Today we're going to go over some of the fundamental stances that are found in Shorinkan and some of the differences between them as well. A lot of newer students don't really understand the difference between like a short front stance and an actual front stance, or how to do namadachi correctly, or shikodachi versus kibidachi, etc., etc. Stances are primarily very specific in terms of how they align the human body structure. There are different ways to do them, but you got to keep in mind that in Shorinkan, our goal is to make sure that our stances are natural, so we don't overstate them like you see in a lot of martial arts tournaments, and we don't elongate them to the point where we can't move effectively. One of the great things about stances also is it's a wonderful workout. When you're working on kata and you got good strong stances, the amount of muscle that it builds in your thighs, your legs, your inner thigh, your calves, everything, it just is a great workout. Plus it works the core in terms of how we do our martial arts. To start off with, we're going to look at Shorinkan or short front stance versus full Zenkoso-dachi. There is a difference between these two. The most important aspect is you got to make sure that you're standing on railroad tracks, so to speak. Notice how my feet are hip width apart. This is how your feet should be when you do a Zenkoso-dachi stance, whether it's short or long. It doesn't matter. You don't want to be like this with your feet on the same line. You need to make sure you keep them separated. Zenkoso-dachi short stance is a natural stance. You're actually taking a natural step forward, just like as if I'm walking towards somebody. That's the easiest way to put it. I'm taking steps, okay? The goal is to make sure that it's simple, it's natural, and it's not overstated. The front knee goes over the top of the instep. So from the front, for a short front stance or Zenkoso-dachi, you just basically take that lead step forward and bend that front knee. It's as simple as that. From the side, same thing. Take a natural step forward and bend the front knee. Very simple. Make sure that the feet are equally spaced apart. You don't want to be like this. All right? You don't turn the body to the side. You stay straight forward. Full Zenkoso-dachi, front stance. This one, the foot steps double width apart. In other words, double shoulder width, double hip width, however you want to put it in terms of that. But the knee position is the same. The foot position is the exact same. So from the front, when I step into that stance, I'm going to take an elongated stance, moving that knee over the top of the instep, back up straight, everything squared forward. Another thing, when you're off to the side here, you'll see it a little bit better. When you step, you want to elongate, keeping the back up straight, point that back foot not to the side of it, to the front as much as possible, front knee bent. You notice this is a lot deeper than our short Zenkoso-dachi. Elongated, full Zenkoso-dachi. Back up straight, don't bend forward, hips lined up forward. They're both practical, they're both used in several scenarios, primarily for delivering power on a technique. Shiko versus Kiba, Shikodachi versus Kibidachi. Shikodachi is prevalent in Okinawan martial arts. You'll find it everywhere and everything. The kibidachi is more of a Japanese style of stance. Nobody really knows when that got put into place. There was some styles that back in the early days of karate that did a kibidachi versus a shikodachi. The primary difference is in a shikodachi, your feet point out at 45. In a kiba, they point straight forward. A shikodachi looks like you're sitting on a box, whereas a kiba has an arc to it. Shikodachi alignment is very simple. You're going to be double shoulder width apart. You want to bend the knees, but have the heels directly underneath the knees. You don't want your feet elongated. You want to be looking like you're sitting on a box. Don't do this and overstate it. Natural position when you go into that shiko. Going from a shiko to a kiba, point your feet, straight forward. And you notice the arcing position like this. The knees point here on a kiba, and on a shiko they point out. So my knees are here, on kiba they point forward. It's very simple as that. The kibidachi is primarily used in kumite-dachi, or kumite stance, which we'll get to at the end of this video. Namadachi, side leaning stance. The entire purpose of a namadachi is to move your head out of an initiated attack as fast as possible. That requires you to move one foot and lean, henceforth side leaning stance, namadachi. The most prevalent place that you'll see this is the opening move of Naihachi Sandan, where we're here like this before we sit in Naihachi Dachi with our secondary. So when you're doing namadachi, your feet don't have to point straight forward. The back foot does, but the other one can point out at a 45, which is fine. You just don't want to overextend the stance. So I'm going to move my feet. I got my feet pointed forward, and then I shift my weight, so I'm turning my body to the side leaning, and leaning stance. Notice the hip and shoulder line up. Okay, I'm actually facing here, but I'm looking to the front when I do this technique. Very simple stance. This should be lined up perfectly. You shouldn't be over leaning or not leaning enough. It should be lined up perfectly. Blocking like this. That's your namadachi. Namadachi is a very quick stance to get out of the way of somebody trying to hit you in the head. Nahachi-dachi. When you do Nahachi-dachi, your feet point inward. This is your big toe. It points inward as much as possible. Some people can turn their feet way in. Other people have difficulty because of broken ankles or injuries over the years. But you don't want them pointing straight forward because then that becomes a horse stance. So they should point in. I always tell my students, I said, put your heels out. Put your heels out. So if I'm sitting like this and I need to do a Nahachi-dachi, put your heels out. That's the easiest way to explain it. Your feet point inward. So like I said, some people can really turn the feet in. I can't do that because of ankle injuries. But you're here, this is a kiba-dachi. Put your heels out. Bend the knees. Nahachi-dachi. The better position is natural. Should be comfortable. Don't squeeze your knees together either. That's a big no-no. You want to step, step, point the feet in, heels out, knees bent, back up straight, natural position. Okay. And like I said, some people are really good at that stance. Some people are really deep with that stance. Other people are not so deep with it. And it doesn't really matter as long as it's proper position. No matter how close it is or how wide it is. It has to be proper position as far as that goes. Cat stance, Nekowashi-dachi. Cat stance is probably the widest known stance, most well-known stance in Okinawa, all of Okinawan karate. But it's also the one that's done very, very, very wrong many, many times. You got to keep in mind in Shorin-ryu, especially in Shorinkan, everything that we do should be natural. So we shouldn't be turning our body to the side when we do a cat stance and aligning our toes up with our back heel. This is bad for your hip and your back knee. It puts a lot of wear and tear on your ACL. Okay, so you want to keep it natural. From the front, you just basically step forward. Notice this foot's over here and this foot's over here, but I'm completely squared forward, and I'm up on the ball of the front foot. My back knee is bent, and the shoulder and hip align. So from the side, when I do my cat stance, same thing. Shoulder, hip, and heel align. You don't want to lean forward on it. You don't want to lean back. There's barely any weight on this foot here. I always tell my students, if you can do this and then set it back down, you're in a pretty good cat stance as far as that goes. But you gotta sink, you gotta squat, okay? Nekowashi-dachi takes a lot of time to practice to get good at. Kumite-dachi. There's a lot of different ways of looking at kumite-dachi. Some people like to stand straight up and then they get frustrated when we start sweeping both of their legs or throwing them. The reason why is because the higher your center of gravity is, the easier it is to throw you, the easier it is to take you down. It also requires you to move a foot to attack. That's a big, big issue. All right. When I was doing kickboxing, I had to adjust to fighting like this. Now you're going to see something here. My kumite stance and my kickboxing stance are pretty much the same. They're just elongated, so I'm a little bit deeper, so I can move faster. Weight's on the ball of the feet, not the heels. It is a kiba-dachi on a 45-degree angle with my hands up. One hand I'm looking over, the other hand's relaxed somewhere in the chest area. It can even be here if necessary. You can switch them, but I don't recommend that unless you're super fast. So you should be on 45 and kiba-dachi, balls of the feet, not the heels. Don't set your weight back. You want to be on the balls of the feet. The balls of the feet allow you to move very quickly. Don't stand upright. Don't do this. Okay? You're giving a huge target. See, you got all this target area here. A good kumite stance, there's very little target. We blade the body, turn the body to the side. Very simple. Okay? Knees are bent, body can bounce. This is the hardest thing for me to get my students to do, is to bend their knees. A lot of people like to stand like this. They think because it's comfortable and you're not bending your knees and you don't have to work as hard to get good at it, that it's okay. Then they get swept. And when they move to the higher ranks, they start getting hit a lot because they can't move. Bend your knees, balls of the feet, guard up. Feet are on a 45. And you'll notice the L position. L position. You don't want to be sideways like this. You can fight like this, but this is only for setting up your opponent for counter techniques. To the front is here. This is the easiest way to be aggressive and countering at the same time. Anyway, this is just a little bit on dachi, some of the stances that we do in Shorinkan. Some of the finer details on them. We have a ton more stances, like the 5 animal stances. Get with me at the dojo if you got questions on these. It's important that you get them down. The deliverance of power in a strike, be it a kick, an elbow, a knee, or a punch, requires the understanding and dynamics of your stances. So it's very important that you practice these. See you guys at the dojo. Train hard. Talk to you soon.